The ash of yesterday. The perfect life that wasn't. Elena Torres stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of amber and gold. At 28, she had everything she thought she wanted. Her architectural designs graced the skyline of New York City. Her family's construction company, Torres and Associates, had flourished under her innovative vision. And in 3 months she would marry Marcus Sterling, the man she had loved since college. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Can't wait to see you tonight, my love. I have a surprise." Elena smiled, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. She had a surprise of her own. The Phoenix Tower project, her most ambitious design yet, was finally approved. A mixed-use skyscraper that would revolutionize sustainable urban living. This project would cement her reputation as one of the most innovative architects of her generation. Elena! Her assistant Jamie rushed in, face flushed with excitement. "The investors just confirmed. Phoenix Tower is greenlit. Full funding approved." Elena's heart soared. 5 years of work, countless sleepless nights, and finally success. She reached for her phone to call Marcus, then hesitated. She would tell him tonight in person, over the romantic dinner he had planned. The serpent in the garden. That evening, Elena arrived at Marcus's penthouse apartment, a bottle of champagne in hand. She used her key to enter, calling out his name. The lights were dim, candles flickering throughout the living room. Rose petals created a path toward the bedroom. "Marcus!" she called, her heart warming at the romantic gesture. He had always known how to make her feel special. But as she approached the bedroom, she heard voices. Low, intimate whispers followed by laughter. Elena's blood turned to ice. She recognized that laugh. It belonged to her younger sister, Sophia. The door stood slightly ajar. Through the gap, Elena saw them. Marcus and Sophia, tangled in sheets that Elena herself had chosen. Their bodies moved together with a familiarity that spoke of more than just tonight. This was no momentary mistake. This was a relationship, hidden in plain sight. "When will you tell her?" Sophia's voice drifted through the door. Marcus chuckled darkly. "Soon. Once we have everything locked down. The Phoenix Tower project is the final piece. With her signature on those documents, we'll have complete control of Torres and Associates. Your father will have no choice but to hand everything over to us." "And Elena?" Sophia asked, her voice carrying not a trace of guilt. "Elena will be destroyed. By the time we're done, she'll have nothing. Not the company, not her reputation, and certainly not me. I never loved her, Sophia. She was always just a means to an end. You know that." Sophia laughed, a cruel sound that cut through Elena's chest like a blade. "My brilliant, naive sister. She trusted everyone. Made it so easy." Elena stumbled backward, her champagne bottle slipping from numb fingers. It hit the hardwood floor with a crash that shattered the night. The voices in the bedroom went silent. She ran. The web of lies tightens. Elena didn't go home that night. She couldn't face her apartment, the one she shared with Marcus on weekends, filled with their photos and plans for the future. Instead, she checked into a small hotel under a false name, her mind racing through every conversation, every document she had signed, every moment of trust she had given so freely. The Phoenix Tower documents. She had signed preliminary papers just last week, transferring project control to a joint account with Marcus. He had told her it was standard procedure for married couples in business together. She had believed him. At dawn, Elena returned to her office. The building stood empty on Sunday morning, just as she needed it to be. She accessed her computer, pulling up files, searching through emails. What she found made her stomach turn. Months of communication between Marcus and Sophia. Plans to embezzle funds from Torres and Associates. Falsified documents bearing her signature. Shell companies created in her name. They had been systematically stealing from her family's company, setting her up to take the fall. But worse, there were emails to her father, Roberto Torres, sent from her account. Messages she had never written, complaining about the company, criticizing his leadership, demanding control. They had been poisoning her relationship with her father for months. Elena's hands shook as she downloaded everything onto a flash drive. She needed proof, needed evidence before she confronted anyone. Her office door opened. Elena spun around to find her father standing there, his face harder than she had ever seen it. "Papa! Don't!" he said, his voice cold. "The board called an emergency meeting. They've discovered significant financial discrepancies. All traced back to you, Elena." "No, Papa, you don't understand. It's Marcus and Sophia. They've been..." "Enough!" Her father's shout echoed through the empty office. "I've seen the evidence. Your signature on every document. The offshore accounts in your name. How could you? After everything I built, everything I gave you. Please listen to me. The police are on their way. If you have any respect left for this family, you'll come quietly." Elena looked at the flash drive in her hand, then at her father's face. Behind him, Marcus and Sophia appeared, their expressions perfect masks of concern and betrayal. Marcus even managed to look heartbroken. "Mr. Torres, sir," Marcus said gently. "I'm so sorry. I should have seen the signs." Elena's been so stressed lately, talking about how she deserved more control, more recognition. "I never thought she would actually steal from the company." Sophia stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Papa, I can't believe Elena would do this to us. To you." The performance was flawless. Elena realized with growing horror that they had planned this moment, rehearsed every word, every gesture. The flash drive felt like lead in her palm. "I have proof," Elena said desperately. "Everything is on this drive. Please, Papa, just look at it." Roberto Torres's eyes were stone. "The only proof I need is already in the hands of the board. You've destroyed everything, Elena. I have no daughter." The words struck Elena like physical blows. She looked at Marcus, at Sophia, at her father's retreating back. In that moment, something inside her broke. Not her spirit, but her innocence. The part of her that believed in trust, in family, in love. She ran. Again. The night everything burned, Elena drove aimlessly through the city streets, tears blurring her vision. She couldn't go home. Couldn't go to friends. Marcus and Sophia had been poisoning those relationships too. She now realized. Every strange comment, every friend who had grown distant, it all made sense now. Her phone rang constantly. Her father. The police. Unknown numbers she assumed were reporters, already circling the scandal. She turned it off, pulling into an abandoned warehouse district near the river. This was where Torres and associates stored old project materials, documents from decades of builds. Elena had come here as a child with her father, exploring the dusty boxes like treasure chests of the past. She climbed out of her car, the flash drive clutched in her hand. Maybe there was something here, some older records that could prove the shell companies were fake, that the signatures were forged. The warehouse door stood unlocked. Strange, but Elena was too desperate to care. She pushed inside, breathing in the familiar smell of old paper and concrete dust. She made her way to the office section in the back, where file cabinets lined the walls. She didn't hear them enter behind her. "Looking for evidence, dear sister?" Sophia's voice cut through the darkness. Elena spun around. Sophia stood in the doorway, Marcus beside her. But they weren't alone. Two large men in dark suits flanked them, their presence radiating menace. "You couldn't just accept it," Marcus said, shaking his head. "You had to keep digging. That's always been your problem, Elena. Too stubborn, too proud to know when you've lost." "Why?" Elena asked, her voice breaking. "I loved you. Both of you. How could you do this?" Sophia laughed, the sound echoing off the warehouse walls. "Love? You want to talk about love? Do you know what it's like growing up in your shadow, Elena? Perfect Elena, brilliant Elena, Papa's favorite Elena. Everything you touched turned to gold while I got scraps from your table. That's not true. Isn't it?" Sophia's eyes blazed with years of hidden resentment. "You got the talent, the opportunities, the company. What did I get? The role of supportive little sister. Well, not anymore. Marcus and I deserve everything you have. We've earned it." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing Elena the screen. Security footage from her office, edited to show her alone, transferring funds, falsifying documents. "Brilliant work, if I do say so myself. Digital forensics will confirm every frame is authentic. Because it is authentic, we just removed Sophia and me from the footage." "You won't get away with this," Elena said, though her conviction wavered. We already have, Marcus replied. He nodded to the men in suits. Make it look like an accident. She came here to destroy evidence, knocked over some chemicals, started a fire. Tragic death of a disgraced embezzler. The men moved toward Elena. She backed away, her hand tightening around the flash drive. If she was going to die, at least this evidence might survive, might someday prove her innocence. She ran deeper into the warehouse, the men's footsteps thundering behind her. She could smell it now, gasoline. They had planned this, prepared the warehouse to burn with her inside it. Elena reached the back exit, throwing her weight against the door. It burst open onto a loading dock overlooking the river. Behind her, she heard the whoosh of flames igniting. The warehouse was old, full of paper and wood. It would burn fast and hot. She had seconds to decide. Stay and burn, or jump into the cold river below and hope she survived. The flash drive. She couldn't let it burn. With trembling hands, she threw it as far as she could, watching it arc through the night air and disappear into the shadows of the neighboring building's roof. Flames burst through the door behind her. Elena heard Marcus shouting, Sophia screaming something she couldn't make out. She jumped. The river hit her like concrete, driving the air from her lungs. The current grabbed her immediately, pulling her under, dragging her downstream. Elena fought to reach the surface, her lungs burning, her limbs going numb from the cold. She broke the surface once, gasping for air, seeing the warehouse fully ablaze behind her. Then the current pulled her under again, and Elena Torres surrendered to the darkness, her last thought a prayer that someone someday would find that flash drive and know the truth. The stranger in the shadows. Elena woke to the sound of rain against windows and the smell of expensive cologne mixed with antiseptic. Every muscle in her body screamed with pain. Her eyes fluttered open to find herself in a massive bedroom, the kind that belonged in a luxury hotel or a billionaire's mansion. Where was she? She tried to sit up, but gentle hands pressed her back down. Don't move. You're safe, but you need to rest. The voice was deep, rich, with an accent she couldn't quite place. Italian, perhaps, but softened by years away from home. Elena turned her head to find a man sitting beside her bed, his features half hidden in shadow. Who are you? Marcus demanded, his voice shaking. Isabella smiled, cold and victorious. I'm the investor who just exposed your fraud. I'm the woman who will make sure you never work in this city again. And I'm the ghost of everyone you ever betrayed. She turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I suggest you reconsider any investments in Sterling projects. As for Torres and Associates, I believe the board has some serious questions for Mr. Sterling and Ms. Torres. As security moved toward Marcus and Sophia, as investors fled and reporters swarmed, Isabella walked calmly off the stage and back to Dante's side. Feel better? He asked quietly. Not yet, Isabella replied, watching Marcus being escorted out by security, Sophia screaming about lawyers and defamation. But it's a start. Roberto Torres stood alone on the stage, staring at the evidence still displayed on the screen. His face showed a man watching his world crumble around him. Isabella felt something twist in her chest. Not quite regret, but not quite satisfaction either. The revenge was sweet, but it didn't erase the pain of her father's betrayal. As they left the Plaza Hotel, Dante took her hand. The hard part comes next. They'll lawyer up, try to discredit you, claim the evidence is falsified. Let them try, Isabella said. We have 6 months of additional evidence, witness testimonies, forensic accountants ready to testify. By the time we're done, Marcus Sterling will be lucky if he's not in prison. But as the car pulled away from the hotel, Isabella caught a glimpse of her father through the window, still standing on that stage, looking lost and alone. For the first time since she had climbed out of that river, Isabella felt tears threaten. This was what she had wanted: justice, revenge, vindication. So why did it feel so hollow? Dante seemed to sense her turmoil. You can't save people from their own blindness, he said gently. He chose to believe them over you. That's not your fault. I know, Isabella whispered. But knowing didn't make it hurt any less. Part 2: The Flames of Vengeance. The Metamorphosis. 6 months had passed since the night Elena Torres died in the river. 6 months of training, transformation, and planning. Isabella Russo stood before a full-length mirror in Dante's penthouse, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. Gone was the soft, approachable architect with her gentle smiles and trusting eyes. In her place stood a vision of cold elegance and calculated power. Her dark hair, once long and wavy, now fell in sleek curtains to her shoulders, styled with precision. Subtle cosmetic work had altered the shape of her face just enough: higher cheekbones, a refined nose, a slight change to her eye shape. Not enough to look fake, but enough that even her own father would have to look twice. "You look like a woman who could buy and sell souls," Dante said from the doorway, his voice carrying approval. Isabella turned, her movements now smooth and confident. Dante had trained her in more than just appearance. Business strategy, negotiation tactics, how to read body language, how to lie convincingly, how to manipulate without appearing to do so. He had transformed her from an architect into a weapon. "I feel like one," she replied, smoothing down the designer dress that probably cost more than her old car. "Is everything ready?" Dante nodded, walking to his desk and pulling out a thick folder. "Isabella Russo's portfolio. You're an Italian-American investor specializing in sustainable development and green architecture. You made your fortune in European markets, and now you're expanding to New York. Your credentials are impeccable. Your background checks out completely." "Because you made it so," Isabella said, taking the folder. "Because I have resources," Dante corrected with a slight smile. "Resources that are now at your disposal. Today we make our first move." Isabella opened the folder to find an invitation embossed with gold lettering. The Manhattan Architectural Summit, a 3-day event where the city's elite architects, investors, and developers gathered to network and showcase projects. Marcus Sterling would be there, presenting the Phoenix Tower, her design stolen and claimed as his own. "He's calling it the Sterling Phoenix," Dante said, his voice hard. "He'll be using the summit to attract additional investors and solidify his position at Torres and Associates." Isabella's fingers tightened on the invitation. "And Sophia? Your sister has been promoted to Chief Creative Officer. She's presenting several new designs, all pulled from your old portfolio that they found in your office after the fire." The rage that bubbled up was hot and familiar, but Isabella had learned to control it, to channel it. Dante had taught her that hot anger made mistakes. Cold anger got results. "Then let's give them a summit they'll never forget," she said. The return to the Lion's Den. The Manhattan Architectural Summit took place at the Javits Center, transformed into a showcase of glass, steel, and innovation. Isabella entered on Dante's arm, aware of every eye that turned their way. Dante Moretti was known in these circles, a wealthy investor with interests in construction and development, but mysterious, private, dangerous in the way that old money could be. Having him as her patron lent Isabella immediate credibility. "Mr. Moretti." A rotund man in an expensive suit bustled over, hand extended. "So good to see you. And who is this stunning creature?" "Isabella Russo," Dante said smoothly. "My new business partner. She's looking to invest in New York development projects, particularly those focused on sustainable urban design." The man's eyes lit up with dollar signs. "Then you must see the Sterling Phoenix, Marcus Sterling's revolutionary new project. Come, I'll introduce you." Isabella's heart hammered in her chest, but her face remained serene, slightly bored even, as they crossed the exhibition floor. And then she saw him. Marcus Sterling stood at the center of an elaborate display, the Phoenix Tower model rotating slowly behind him. He looked prosperous, successful, confident. Everything he had stolen from her wrapped around him like expensive cologne. Beside him stood Sophia, her sister, dressed in designer clothes that screamed new money. She laughed at something an investor said, her hand possessively on Marcus's arm. "Marcus, I have someone you must meet," their guide called out. Marcus turned, his smile professional and practiced. Isabella watched his eyes pass over her without recognition. Why would he look twice? Elena Torres was dead after all, burned in a warehouse fire. Body swept away by the river, never found. "Marcus Sterling," the man said. "Meet Isabella Russo and Dante Moretti. They're interested in the Sterling Phoenix." Marcus's smile widened as he extended his hand first to Dante, then to Isabella. When his fingers touched hers, Isabella felt nothing but cold satisfaction. He had no idea he was shaking hands with a ghost. Delighted, Marcus said. The Sterling Phoenix is my most ambitious project yet. A completely sustainable mixed-use tower that will revolutionize urban living. Your design? Isabella asked, her voice carrying just a hint of Italian accent that Dante had helped her perfect. Every detail, Marcus confirmed proudly. Liar. The word burned on Isabella's tongue, but she smiled instead. Fascinating. I'm particularly interested in sustainable architecture. Perhaps we could discuss the technical specifications over dinner. She saw the interest flicker in Marcus's eyes. Not romantic interest. He was still playing the devoted fiancé to Sophia, but the interest of a shark scenting blood in the water. Isabella Russo represented money, connections, legitimacy. I'd be honored, Marcus said. Tonight? I know an excellent restaurant. Perfect, Isabella replied, then turned to Sophia, who had been watching the exchange with barely concealed irritation. And you are? Sophia Torres, her sister said, her voice tight. Chief Creative Officer of Torres and Associates. Torres, Isabella repeated thoughtfully. Any relation to Roberto Torres, the company founder? Sophia's smile didn't reach her eyes. His daughter. How wonderful to have family in business, Isabella said, her voice warm while her eyes stayed cold. My own family is all back in Italy. I miss them terribly. She watched a flicker of something. Guilt? Dismissal? Crossed Sophia's face before her sister turned away, pulling Marcus into conversation with another investor. Dante's hand touched the small of Isabella's back gently. Well done, he murmured. The hook is set. The web begins to spin. Dinner with Marcus that night took place at Le Bernardin, an exclusive restaurant where he clearly wanted to impress her. Isabella played her part perfectly, the sophisticated investor, interested but not desperate, knowledgeable enough to ask intelligent questions but leaving room for Marcus to showcase his supposed expertise. The Phoenix Tower will accommodate over 300 residential units, Marcus explained between courses of exquisitely prepared seafood. With commercial space on the lower floors and a rooftop garden that will serve the entire community. Impressive, Isabella said, sipping her wine. And the environmental systems? I'm particularly interested in how you're managing water reclamation and energy efficiency. Marcus launched into an explanation that Isabella recognized immediately. Her own words, her own innovative systems, repeated back to her by the man who had stolen them. She listened, nodding in appropriate places, asking follow-up questions that she knew would make him sweat because she had designed every inch of that building. Sure enough, Marcus began to falter, his answers becoming vaguer, more general. He didn't truly understand the systems because he hadn't created them. You know, Isabella said, setting down her wine glass, I have some concerns about the load-bearing structure in the design you showed me. The eastern wall particularly. In my experience, that much glass in a sustainable tower requires additional support, especially with New York's wind patterns. She watched Marcus's face carefully. The eastern wall was a flaw she had discovered weeks before the design was stolen. A problem she had been working to solve. If Marcus truly understood the design, he would know about this issue. But his face remained blank, then shifted to a practiced smile. I assure you, Ms. Russo, every aspect of the Sterling Phoenix has been thoroughly engineered. Of course, Isabella said smoothly. I'm sure you're right. Perhaps I could review the full engineering reports? Before I commit to any investment, you understand. She saw the panic flicker across his features before he masked it. Certainly. I'll have my team send them over. They wouldn't, of course, because the full engineering reports would show Elena Torres's name all over them. And even with their forgeries and alterations, too many details would point back to the original architect. Isabella smiled. Wonderful. I look forward to reviewing them. In the meantime, I should tell you that I'm also considering investing in several other projects in the city. Competition for capital is fierce right now. The implied threat landed perfectly. Marcus leaned forward, his charm ratcheting up. Ms. Russo, Isabella, if I may, the Sterling Phoenix isn't just another building. It's a legacy project. An investment with returns that go beyond mere financial gain. Legacy, Isabella repeated, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. Yes, I can see how important legacy is to you. Tell me, have you always worked in architecture? I came to it through business, Marcus admitted. My background is in finance. I met my fiancée, Sofia, through her family's company. Her father, Roberto Torres, is a giant in the industry. And her sister? Isabella asked casually, as if she hadn't been carefully steering the conversation to this point. I believe I read something about a scandal? Marcus's expression darkened convincingly. Tragic situation. Elena Torres, Sofia's older sister, embezzled from the company and died fleeing the consequences. It nearly destroyed Roberto. How terrible, Isabella said, watching him lie about her death without a flicker of conscience. The sister must have been deeply troubled. She was, Marcus said, shaking his head sadly. Jealous of Sofia, resentful of her father's success. It's a cautionary tale, really, about how envy can corrupt even family bonds. The audacity of his lies took Isabella's breath away. But she maintained her composure, nodding sympathetically. Family can be complicated. I'm fortunate mine has always been supportive. As the dinner concluded, Marcus walked her to where Dante waited with the car. I hope this is the beginning of a profitable partnership, he said, taking her hand again. I'm certain it will be profitable, Isabella assured him. For someone. The cracks begin to show. Over the next month, Isabella and Dante executed their plan with surgical precision. Isabella made a show of being interested in investing in the Sterling Phoenix, attending meetings, reviewing documents, asking increasingly difficult technical questions that exposed Marcus's shallow understanding of the project. But more importantly, she began making moves in the financial markets. With Dante's resources and guidance, she quietly purchased debt from several of Torres and Associates' creditors. Not enough to raise alarms, but enough to have leverage when the time was right. She also started spreading word among investors that the Sterling Phoenix might have structural issues, that she had concerns about the engineering. Nothing concrete, nothing actionable, just whispers that made other investors pause and ask questions. Marcus grew increasingly desperate to secure her investment. He invited her to dinners, to gallery openings, to charity events where she met Roberto Torres himself. Seeing her father again nearly broke Isabella's composure. He looked older, worn down by grief and betrayal. When Marcus introduced them, Roberto barely glanced at her, his mind clearly elsewhere. Mr. Torres, Isabella said, keeping her voice steady. I've heard so much about your company. You've built something remarkable. Roberto looked at her properly then, and for one heart-stopping moment, Isabella thought he recognized her. But then he simply nodded. I built it for my family, he said quietly. But family can disappoint you in ways you never imagine. Sometimes, Isabella replied carefully, family doesn't disappoint. Sometimes they're just misunderstood. Roberto's eyes sharpened. You sound like you're speaking from experience. We all have our painful stories, Mr. Torres, Isabella said. She could feel Dante's warning presence beside her, reminding her not to push too hard too fast. Sofia appeared then, linking her arm through her father's. Papa, there are people who want to meet you. She glanced at Isabella dismissively. Another potential investor Marcus is courting. I'm sure she'll disappoint like all the others. On the contrary, Isabella said smoothly, I'm quite committed to my investments. Once I believe in something, I see it through to the end, no matter what obstacles arise. The double meaning wasn't lost on Dante, who covered a smile. But Sofia simply looked annoyed as she pulled her father away. You're playing a dangerous game, Dante murmured as they watched them go. No, Isabella corrected. I'm playing the long game. There's a difference. That night, back at Dante's penthouse, they reviewed their progress. Financial records spread across the desk, showing the complex web of companies and investments they had been building. Marcus is getting desperate, Dante observed. He's made 3 errors in the past week alone. Sent me engineering reports that contradict each other. His story about the project timeline keeps changing. Because he's trying to cover up the fact that he stole everything, Isabella said. He doesn't actually understand the work, so he can't keep his lies straight. She pulled up a file on her laptop. I've also been tracking Sofia's new designs. Every single one is pulled from my old portfolio. She's not even trying to create original work. Dante leaned over her shoulder, his presence warm and solid. Over the past months, their relationship had shifted from business partners to something more complicated. There were moments like now, when Isabella felt the pull of attraction, the desire for comfort and connection. But she pushed it aside. There was no room for vulnerability when she had a mission to complete. The summit's second annual dinner is tomorrow night, Dante said. They're announcing major project investments. Marcus expects you to commit to the Sterling Phoenix publicly. Isabella smiled, and it was not a kind expression. Then let's not disappoint him. But not in the way he expects. The first domino falls. The second annual Manhattan Architectural Summit dinner was held at the Plaza Hotel, a glittering affair of New York's power elite. Isabella arrived in a gown that cost more than her old annual salary, diamonds at her throat that Dante had insisted she wear. "You look like a queen," he said as they entered the ballroom. "Queens have power," Isabella replied. "I'm just a ghost haunting the people who killed her." The dinner proceeded with the usual speeches and networking. Marcus found her early, his excitement barely contained. "Isabella, tonight's the night. After the presentations, investors will be announcing their commitments. Your endorsement of the Sterling Phoenix would be invaluable." "We'll see," Isabella said noncommittally, watching his confidence falter slightly. When the presentation portion of the evening began, Marcus took the stage with Sophia beside him. The lights dimmed as the Phoenix Tower model appeared on screen behind them, slowly rotating to show every angle. "The Sterling Phoenix represents the future of urban development," Marcus began, his voice confident and practiced. "Sustainable, beautiful, and profitable. This project will set the standard for the next generation of architecture." Isabella listened to him claim credit for her work, her vision, her sleepless nights of calculations and revisions. Beside her she felt Dante tense, ready to move when she gave the signal. "We're pleased to announce that we've already secured significant backing," Marcus continued. "And tonight we hope to welcome even more investors to this revolutionary project." He looked directly at Isabella, his smile expectant. Isabella stood, and the room went quiet, all eyes turning to her. She walked toward the stage with deliberate steps, very aware of the picture she presented. Powerful, wealthy, decisive. Marcus's smile widened as she approached. But instead of joining him on stage, Isabella stopped at the microphone set up for investor comments. "I have a question about the Sterling Phoenix," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the room. "Mr. Sterling, can you explain the specific load-bearing modifications you made to the eastern wall to accommodate the glass facade in New York's wind conditions?" Marcus's smile froze. "That's a highly technical question." "I'm a highly technical investor," Isabella interrupted smoothly. "I don't commit millions without understanding exactly what I'm investing in. So please explain the engineering." She watched him flounder, saw the panic cross his face. He looked to Sophia, who looked equally lost. "The engineering team handled those specific details," Marcus finally said, his voice less certain now. "The engineering team that includes Elena Torres?" Isabella asked, her voice cutting through the murmurs that had started in the crowd. "Oh wait. She's dead. Tragic. Tell me, Mr. Sterling, who did design the Phoenix Tower originally?" The room erupted in whispers. Marcus's face went white, then red. "I designed it. This is my project." Isabella pulled out her phone, connecting it to the presentation system with a quick override code that Dante had prepared. The Phoenix Tower disappeared from the screen, replaced by documents, original designs, all bearing Elena Torres's signature, and dating back over a year before Marcus claimed to have started the project. "These are from the City Planning Commission's archives," Isabella said. "Filed under the name Phoenix Tower, architect Elena Torres, approved nearly 6 months before her death. Before you claim it's a coincidence, should we examine your other projects?" The screen shifted again, showing Sophia's new designs side by side with Elena's original portfolio, identical in every detail. "This is absurd," Sophia shouted, standing. "Those designs are mine." "Are they?" Isabella asked coldly. "Because the metadata on your submitted files shows they were created 2 years ago on a computer registered to Elena Torres." You didn't even bother to strip the original information before you claimed them as your own. The room exploded into chaos. Investors stood, demanding answers. Board members from Torres and Associates clustered together, their faces showing shock and growing understanding. Roberto Torres stood slowly, his eyes fixed on the screen, then on Marcus and Sofia. What is the meaning of this? It's a setup, Marcus shouted. This woman is trying to sabotage us. Am I? Isabella asked. She pulled out a flash drive, the same one she had thrown from the warehouse before jumping into the river. The one Dante's people had spent weeks searching for and finally found. Or am I simply revealing the truth that's been hidden? She loaded the files from the drive, showing the incriminating emails between Marcus and Sofia, the embezzlement schemes, the plans to frame Elena, everything. You see, Mr. Sterling, when you burn bridges, sometimes you forget to check if anyone survived the fire, Isabella said. Her voice dropped, becoming harder. Elena Torres trusted you. She loved you. And you destroyed her for profit. Part 3: The Phoenix Rising. The aftermath of exposure. The week following the summit dinner was a media firestorm. Architectural dynasty built on fraud screamed the headlines. Torres heiress and Sterling embezzle millions, declared another. Isabella Russo became the hero of the story. The savvy investor who had exposed a massive fraud scheme that had been operating under everyone's noses. Marcus Sterling was arrested within 48 hours. The evidence was overwhelming. The emails, the financial records, the stolen designs, all of it pointing to a systematic scheme to steal from Torres and Associates and frame Elena Torres for their crimes. Sofia fared slightly better initially.